I never figured dust could taste like regret until that evening in 1889, when the sun dipped low over Dusty Hollow like a coward slinking away from a fight. My hands were raw from wrangling steers all day at Willow Creek Ranch, and the sweat on my brow mixed with the grit of the trail, stinging my eyes as I stared down the barrel of a revolver pointed straight at my chest. Not the way I'd planned to end my shift, but out here in the wilds of the American West, plans were about as reliable as a drunkard's promise. Hand over the pay. Harlan, growled Zeke Mallory, his finger twitching on the trigger. He was a mean son of a gun, one of those leftover desperados from the cattle wars, with a scar twisting his lip into a permanent sneer. His two cronies flanked him, their horses snorting steam in the cooling air, rifles cocked and ready. We'd just finished branding the last of the herd, and the foreman had slipped me a few silver dollars, hard-earned, blood-smeared wages that were supposed to tide me over until the next job. But Zeke had been nursing a grudge since I'd beaten him at cards last winter. Fair and square, though he'd sworn otherwise. My heart pounded like a war drum in my chest, but I kept my voice steady, the way Pa had taught me.
You pull that trigger, Zeke, and you'll have half the county on your tail.
Ain't worth it for a handful of coins. Inside, though, fear clawed at me. Not just for my life, but for the emptiness it'd leave behind. At 25, I was already a ghost of a man, chasing shadows of what could have been. No family left, no land to call my own, just a worn-out saddle and dreams that faded faster than morning mist. Zeke laughed, a raspy bark that echoed off the dry hills. You think anyone's gonna miss a drifter like you, Jack? Your pa's gone, buried under that lonely willow, and you're just the sorry remnant. His words hit harder than any bullet could. Pa, Samuel Harlan, had been my anchor, a visionary with calloused hands and a heart full of fire. He'd carved out a slice of paradise south of the cliffs, building fences before the cattle even grazed, sinking every penny into water pumps that promised abundance. But the flood of '86 had come roaring like Judgment Day, sweeping away half the herd and drowning Pa in debt. I dug his grave with my bare hands, the earth cold and unforgiving, and ever since. Those debts had marched in like an army. Banknotes, unpaid wages to ranch hands, and gambling tabs from men like Zeke who never forgot a loss. I shifted my weight, my hand inching toward the knife tucked in my boot. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and horse sweat, the endless sky above us turning bruised purple. One of Zeke's boys, a wiry kid named Billy with a mustache that looked painted on, spat on the ground. Boss, let's just take it and go. Sun's settin', and I hear the sheriff's riding this way tonight. Zeke's eyes narrowed, but before he could decide, a shot cracked through the dusk. Not from his gun, but from behind me. Old Tom, the ranch cook, a grizzled veteran with a limp from the war between the states, stepped out from the barn shadows, his shotgun smoking. "Get off this land, Mallory, or I'll pepper you like a Thanksgiving turkey." Tom's voice was gravelly, laced with that southern drawl that made every word sound like a challenge. He'd been like an uncle to me these past months, sharing stories by the campfire about lost loves and battles won. His eyes always misty when he spoke of his late wife back in Georgia. Zeke cursed, wheeling his horse around. "This ain't over, Harlan. You'll pay one way or another." They thundered off into the twilight, leaving dust clouds that choked the air. I exhaled, my knees nearly buckling, and clapped Tom on the shoulder. "Owe you one, old man," he grunted, reloading his shotgun. "You owe me nothing, boy, but watch your back. Men like Zeke don't forgive easy." As he hobbled back to the bunkhouse, I pocketed my wages, feeling the weight of them like chains. Hunger gnawed at my gut. A constant companion, but it was the deeper ache, the loneliness, that really ate at me. I'd seen couples in town holding hands under the saloon lights, whispering promises that seemed as fragile as glass. Love, it was a luxury for folks with full bellies and safe beds. Me, I was just surviving, one dusty day at a time. That's when the rider appeared, materializing from the gathering dark like a specter, cloaked in a dust-caked duster, black gloves gripping the reins. He said nothing as he reined in his black stallion. The horse's eyes gleamed wild, and the man handed me a sealed envelope before spurring away without a word. I tore it open under the flickering lantern light from the barn, my fingers trembling from the adrenaline still coursing through me. The paper was fine, cream-edged with embossed borders carrying a faint whiff of lavender mixed with gun oil. A strange, intoxicating blend that made my head spin. Inside elegant script read, "Mr. Harlan, dinner at Ravenscroft spread tonight. Come clean. Come quiet." No signature, but I knew. Everyone in Dusty Hollow whispered about Victoria Ravenscroft, the cattle baroness, a widow whose spread sprawled like a small kingdom across the plains. Fierce as a wildfire, they said, with a temper that could scorch the earth. She hadn't set foot in town for 6 years, holed up in her fortress amid endless fields and darker secrets. What could a woman like that want with a broke cowboy like me? I stared at the note, my mind racing. No clean shirt to my name, but I could borrow one from Tom. He owed me for chopping wood last week. My heart twisted with a mix of fear and curiosity. Life had never handed me anything without exacting a price in blood or sweat. Was this a trap, a job, or something more dangerous, like the pull of fate I'd felt only once before, in the eyes of a girl back in Kansas who'd broken my heart and left me wandering? Shaking off the thought, I saddled up my bay mare Dusty, her coat rough from hard rides. "Easy, girl," I murmured, stroking her neck. She nickered softly as if sensing my unease. I tucked my knife in my belt, adjusted my wide-brimmed hat, and headed west, the stars emerging like pinpricks in the vast sky. The ride was long, the trail winding through parched hills where coyotes howled their lonesome songs. Memories flooded me, Pa's laughter echoing across our lost land, his dreams of a legacy I'd failed to hold on to. "One day, son," he'd say, "you'll find your own path, strong as these fences." But all I'd found was deadened dust. As the sun vanished, Ravenscroft's spread loomed ahead, its iron gates twisting like thorny vines, crowned with a coiled rattlesnake head under a bold R. My mare snorted, uneasy, sweat streaking her flanks. I'd borrowed a white shirt from Tom, sleeves a tad short, collar tight, but I'd polished my boots with spit and combed my hair for the first time in weeks. Felt like a fool playing dress-up, but something in that note compelled me. A burly ranch hand met me at the gate, silent as stone, his holster slung low like it was part of him. "She's waiting," was all he said, his voice a rumble. He led me up the hill to the main house, a towering edifice like a temple to power, with veranda pillars thick as oaks and a wide wooden door carved with roses entwined around pistils, a blend of beauty and brutality that set my nerves on edge. Inside, the cool air hit me like a slap, marble floors gleaming under gas chandeliers that flickered like trapped stars. Paintings lined the walls, stallions thundering through storms, men with dead eyes in Confederate uniforms, relics of a war that still haunted the South. Servants moved like ghosts, efficient and wordless, their eyes sliding past me as if I were invisible. The dining room doors swung open, revealing a long oak table polished to a mirror sheen, candlelight dancing like fireflies. There she sat at the head, Victoria Ravenscroft, in a deep purple riding gown with silver buttons, her hair pinned under a black lace veil, rings glinting on her fingers like captured moonlight. Her face was pale, severe, untouched by time or mercy, but her eyes— God, those eyes held a storm that drew me in, a depth that whispered of pain and passion long buried. "Mr. Harlan," she said, not rising, her voice smooth as aged whiskey with an undercurrent of steel. I removed my hat, holding it like a shield. "I wasn't sure I had a choice, ma'am." She tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You always have a choice, Mr. Harlan. You just might not like what happens if you say no." I sat slowly, the silverware gleaming like weapons, the aroma of roasted venison and fresh bread making my stomach growl despite the tension. A bottle of red wine sat like a dark sentinel, its color deep as midnight blood. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, folding her hands as if in prayer. "I know what folks say," I replied, my voice low, steady, rich, ruthless, more dangerous than a drought. Her smile widened just a fraction, cool and calculating. "Good, saves time." She poured herself a glass of wine, the liquid swirling like forbidden secrets, but offered me none. I felt a pull toward her, inexplicable, like the first rain after a long dry spell. Refreshing, yet treacherous. Who was this woman, really? Behind the veil and the veil of rumors? What heartbeat? My own chest tightened, memories of lost love surfacing. Sarah, with her laughter like bells, gone too soon to fever, leaving me hollow. Was this attraction or just the lure of mystery? "I brought you here because I need a husband," she said flatly, as if ordering flour from the general store. "And you need something in return." I blinked, the words hitting like a gut punch. Pardon? Marriage, immediate, legal, a week later a quiet divorce. My mind reeled. Why me, a nobody with nothing but calluses and regrets? But in her eyes I saw a flicker, not of desperation, but of something deeper, a vulnerability masked by iron will. The room seemed to close in, the candles casting shadows that danced like unspoken desires. What game was she playing? And why did my heart race at the thought of stepping into it? The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions. Outside, the wind whispered through the hills, carrying echoes of the life I'd left behind. The debts, the dangers, the loneliness. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a storm that would test my soul, unearth buried passions, and force me to confront the prejudices of a harsh world where love was as rare as water in the desert. As I sat there, staring into her unyielding gaze, a part of me yearned to say yes, not for the money, but for the chance to feel alive again, to chase a connection in this God-forsaken land. But another part screamed caution, remembering Zeke's threat, Pa's grave, and the ghosts that haunted my every step. What secrets did Victoria hide? And would uncovering them heal me or break me for good? The morning after I said I do to Victoria Ravenscroft, the sun rose over Dusty Hollow like it was mocking me, casting a golden glow that made the world look softer than it was. My head throbbed from the wine and the weight of what I'd done, marrying a storm in a black lace veil. I stood in the silk-sheeted room she'd given me, staring out at the canyons through a window bigger than any I'd ever owned. The Ravenscroft spread sprawled endless below, cattle dotting the plains like stars in a daytime sky. But it was the silence that got me, the kind that presses on your chest, heavy with secrets. I'd traded my freedom for a promise of debt-free days, but the cost felt like it was still coming, sharp as a blade in the dark. I pulled on my boots, the leather creaking like a warning, and headed downstairs. The house was a labyrinth of polished wood and shadows, every corner hiding whispers of lives lived before I stumbled in. Breakfast was laid out in the dining room, bacon crisp as autumn leaves, eggs sunny side up, cornbread steaming fresh. But Victoria was nowhere. A maid, young and skittish with eyes like a spooked colt, darted in to clear a plate. "Ma'am, don't eat with guests," she mumbled before vanishing. Guests. That's what I was, even with a ring on my finger and her name tied to mine. Outside, the ranch buzzed with its own rhythm. I saddled Dusty, my mare, and rode out to check the northern fence line, hoping work would quiet the questions clawing at my mind. Why me? Why a marriage that felt like a deal with the devil? The hands called me Mr. Harlan now, their voices laced with caution, not respect. I caught their glances, quick, guarded, like they knew something I didn't. Old Ben, the stable-master, was the only one who spoke plain. "Keep one eye open, son," he said, spitting tobacco into the dirt. "Last fella who got too curious ended up under the rose bushes out back." He chuckled, but his eyes didn't. That afternoon, I was fixing a broken water pump when the first danger came. A low rumble shook the ground, and I looked up to see a stampede, hundreds of cattle thundering straight for me, their hooves kicking up a dust cloud that choked the sky. No time to think. I leapt onto a boulder, my heart hammering as the herd roared past, close enough to feel the heat of their bodies. A rope snagged my ankle, yanking me down into the chaos. I rolled, dodging hooves, my knife flashing out to cut the lasso. Someone had tied it deliberate, looped it around a stake, driven deep. I scrambled free, lungs burning, and saw a figure on horseback vanish into the hills. Zeke Mallory's silhouette, unmistakable with that scar-twisted sneer. I stumbled back to the ranch. Bruised and shaken, the rope still clutched in my hand. Ben found me, his face grim. "Told you, boy. You're in deep now." I didn't ask what he meant. The rope was proof enough. Zeke wasn't just after my wages anymore. He wanted blood, and my new title as Victoria's husband had painted a target on my back.